3 months had passed since the meeting between humans and aliens. Ambassador Thalvek stood once again in the Galactic Council chambers, but this time the atmosphere was completely different. Every member of the council wanted to hear what had been discovered about Earth. Honored members, Thalvex began. I have returned from Earth with answers to our questions. The humans are not defenseless. They are defended by the most powerful force we have encountered in our exploration of the galaxy. The chamber fell silent. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds waited to hear more. Earth sits at a unique point in space-time where quantum probability streams converge, Thalvex explained. The humans, through no conscious effort of their own, generate a field that influences local reality. 8 billion minds, all connected to quantum mechanics in a way most species evolved past. This field responds to hostile intent by forcing attackers to experience humanity's entire history of suffering and survival. Holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber, showing data collected during the investigation, charts, graphs, and video recordings of the dreams experienced by the crew members. No military force can push through this barrier, Thalvex continued. The psychological weight is too great. But more importantly, if an attack proceeded despite this pressure, the field would become active. 8 billion humans unified by threat, their collective will focused on survival. Our calculations suggest this would bend probability itself. A council member stood to ask a question. Are you saying the species can manipulate reality? Not consciously, Thalvex replied. But unconsciously, yes. When faced with extinction, humans do not calculate odds and accept defeat. They reject the concept of defeat entirely and find ways to survive. This psychological trait, combined with their quantum consciousness connection, makes attacking them mathematically futile. Commander Vorketh stepped forward to add his perspective. I have studied human military history extensively. These beings have fought thousands of wars against each other. They know violence intimately, yet they also know peace. They are capable of both destruction and creation, warfare and diplomacy. They are warriors who choose when to fight and when to talk. That wisdom makes them worthy of respect. Another council member spoke. What do you recommend? I recommend we reclassify Earth from a primitive world to an independent power, Thalvex said firmly. Sector 7G3 should be declared off-limits to all hostile action. Not to protect the humans, but to protect any species foolish enough to attack them from the psychological trauma they would experience. The vote was called. One by one, representatives from across the galaxy cast their decision. The result was unanimous. Earth would be recognized as an independent power, protected by its own unique nature rather than by galactic law. On Earth, Ambassador Tae Yang stood before the United Nations in a closed emergency session. Leaders from every nation had gathered to hear his report on the alien contact. The aliens have agreed to leave us alone until we are ready to join the galactic community, Tae Yang announced. They understand now that we cannot be conquered. They have classified our world as too dangerous to attack and too valuable to destroy. We have been given time to grow and develop at our own pace. How long do we have? Asked one of the leaders. As long as we need, Tae Yang replied. They are establishing an observation post beyond our solar system. They will monitor us from a distance, but they will not interfere. The decision of when to make official contact with the galaxy is ours to make. Should we tell the public? Another leader asked. That is for this body to decide, Tae Yang said. But I recommend we wait a few more years. Let us prepare our people for the knowledge that we are not alone. Let us build the infrastructure we will need for future contact. There is no rush now. We have time. In the hidden facility in South Korea, Dr. Hwan-seok and Ji-woo continued their research. With official government support now, their small laboratory had grown into a major research center. Look at this, Ji-woo said, pointing at her screen. The quantum field is not just defensive. It is also transmitting outward. Human culture, art, music, stories, all of it bleeds into space whether we know it or not. Hwan-seok studied the data with interest. How far does it reach? We are not sure yet. But according to alien records, thousands of species have been influenced by human creativity without ever making direct contact. Our stories reach farther than we thought possible. Minister Acha visited the facility regularly now. She had been promoted after successfully managing the first contact situation. How is the research progressing? We learn something new every day, Hwan-seok reported. The quantum field is more complex than we initially thought. It responds to collective human emotion. When we are unified by joy or purpose, the field strengthens. When we are divided by conflict, it weakens slightly. So unity makes us stronger? Acha asked. Yes, but diversity also matters, Jiwoo explained. 8 billion different perspectives, different cultures, different ways of thinking. That diversity creates the complexity that makes the field so powerful. We are strong not despite our differences, but because of them. On the Saturn platform, Captain Kyung-soo and Engineer Bora received commendations for their service. They had maintained defensive readiness throughout the crisis, even though their weapons were never needed. I spent 5 years preparing for a battle that never came, Kyung-soo said, looking at his medal. That was the point, Bora replied. The best defense is one you never have to use. We were ready, and that readiness helped protect Earth. But the real defense was always humanity itself. What happens to us now? Kyung-soo wondered. We keep watching, Bora said. The galaxy knows about us now. Most of them will respect our space, but not everyone follows the rules. We stay ready just in case. Years passed. The Galactic Council established its observation post at the edge of Earth's solar system, a small station staffed by peaceful researchers and diplomats. They monitored human broadcasts, learned human languages, and waited patiently for the day when Earth would be ready to join them. Ambassador Thalvex wrote a comprehensive study on humanity that became required reading for all galactic diplomats and military commanders. The conclusion was simple but profound. Humans cannot be conquered, only befriended or avoided. Any attempt at hostile action would result in failure and psychological damage to the attackers. The Kryn Empire officially proposed an alliance with Earth to be activated when humanity was ready. Commander Vorketh became an advocate for human culture, fascinated by their combination of warrior spirit and diplomatic wisdom. Dr. Misun published her research on quantum consciousness, winning numerous scientific awards. Her work proved that human consciousness was fundamentally unique in the galaxy, not superior, just different. And that difference made humanity impossible to defeat through conventional warfare. On a quiet morning 10 years after first contact, a small merchant ship approached Earth's solar system. The captain was a peaceful trader from a distant world who had read Ambassador Thalvex's report and wanted to see this legendary species for themselves. As the ship passed Jupiter, the captain felt it. The presence of 8 billion humans, living their lives on the small blue planet ahead. It was not threatening, just overwhelming in its intensity. The captain felt flashes of human experience. A child laughing, a scientist making a discovery, an artist creating beauty, a teacher helping students, a farmer planting crops. 8 billion ordinary moments that together created something extraordinary. The merchant captain made a log entry. Approaching Sector 7G3, human presence confirmed. The reports are accurate. These beings are not dangerous, but they are indomitable. They have survived everything their history threw at them, and they will survive everything the future brings. Recommend all vessels maintain respectful distance and peaceful intentions. Delivery to observation post proceeding as planned. On Earth, people went about their daily lives unaware of the merchant ship or the captain's observations. They worked, they played, they loved, they struggled, they succeeded, they failed, and they tried again. They were simply being human, which was the most powerful thing they could possibly be. In his office in Seoul, Ambassador Tai Yang looked up at the stars through his window. He knew about the merchant ship. Earth's sensors tracked every vessel that entered their system now. But there was no alarm, no threat. Just another visitor learning what the galaxy had finally understood. Humanity was not protected by weapons or technology or superior force. Humanity was protected by being human, by refusing to give up, by surviving disaster after disaster and growing stronger each time, by 8 billion individual voices that together sang one unstoppable song. We persist. We endure, we survive, and nothing in the universe can change that. The galaxy had tried to understand why no one attacked Earth. Now they knew. Earth was not defenseless. It was defended by the most powerful force in existence, the collective will of a species that had looked extinction in the face countless times and simply refused to die. That was why no one attacked Earth. That was why they never would. And that was why, when humanity finally joined the galactic community on their own terms, they would do so as equals, respected and valued for exactly what they were: human. The Torvan Vanguard fleet approached Jupiter. 20 massive battleships led the way, their shields glowing with protective energy. Behind them came hundreds of smaller vessels. The aliens felt confident. They always did. On the bridge of the lead ship, Commander Krex studied his sensors. Nothing. No enemy vessels, no weapons platforms. The space around Jupiter appeared empty. Perhaps they ran away, an officer suggested. Krex nodded. It would not be the first time. Most species fled when they saw the collective's power. He opened a channel to the fleet. All ships proceed to target, scan for life signs on the moons. That was when the stars came alive. Thousands of small objects suddenly appeared on Torvan sensors. They had been hiding, powered down, waiting in the shadow of Jupiter's moons. Now they ignited their engines and rushed forward like angry hornets. "What are those?" Krex shouted. "Unknown, sir. They are too small to be capital ships, maybe fighters. But there are so many." Captain Mireille Kim led the attack. Her fighter squadron had trained for this moment. She checked her weapons one last time. Railguns loaded, missiles armed, heart steady. "Remember your training," she spoke into her communicator. "Stay close, move fast, make every shot count." The human fighters dove into the Torvan formation. The aliens fired their massive energy weapons, but the small fighters were too quick. They dodged and weaved through the deadly beams of light. The Torvan had never fought an enemy like this. Their weapons were designed to fight other large ships, not swarms of tiny, fast attackers. Kim's targeting computer locked onto a Torvan battleship. She fired her railgun. The solid metal slug traveled at incredible speed. It punched through the alien shield like paper and buried itself deep in the ship's hull. Explosions rippled across the surface. "Target hit!" Her wingman called out. "Keep going." All around her, human fighters attacked. They used a tactic they called the Death Blossom. A fighter would spin rapidly while firing in all directions. The Torvan targeting computers could not track such erratic movement. More alien ships took damage. On the Eternal Dominion, High Admiral Vex Thor watched in disbelief. His vanguard was being torn apart. "Report," he demanded. "We have lost 5 battleships, sir. 8 more are heavily damaged. The enemy fighters are using kinetic weapons. Our shields are not stopping them." Kinetic weapons? Vex Thor felt a chill. The humans were using primitive technology, solid projectiles instead of energy beams. But it was working. "Why are we not hitting them? They are too small and too fast, sir. They stay close to our ships. If we use our main weapons, we will hit our own vessels." Then something worse happened. Hidden platforms near Jupiter's moons activated. Massive railguns built by Dr. Hyeron Choi's team emerged from concealment. They were enormous. Each one could fire a projectile the size of a small building. "Firing solutions locked, Doctor," Choi said calmly from her control station. "Fire." The railguns fired with thunderous force. 3 metal slugs crossed the distance in seconds. They slammed into 3 Torvan capital ships. The first ship's shield flickered and died. The slug tore through the hull from front to back. The ship broke in half. The second and third ships suffered similar fates. Vex Thor stared at his tactical display. In less than 30 minutes, he had lost 8 capital ships and dozens of smaller vessels. The vanguard was in complete chaos. "Retreat," he ordered. "Pull back to the asteroid belt." The surviving Torvan ships turned and fled. Human fighters chased them for a while, then broke off. They had accomplished their mission. The enemy knew now that this would not be easy. Kim guided her fighter back toward the human fleet. She was exhausted but satisfied. Her squadron had only lost 12 fighters out of 500. The trade was acceptable. As she docked, she saw other pilots celebrating. But Kim did not celebrate. This was just the first battle. The real war was only beginning. On Earth Station Odyssey, Admiral Park watched the battle reports. "Good work," he said to his staff. "But do not get too confident. They will adapt. They will learn. We hurt them, but we did not break them." "What do you think they will do next?" Lieutenant Song asked. Park studied the tactical map. They will send scouts. They will analyze what happened. Then they will come again with a new plan. We bought ourselves time. Maybe a week. Maybe less. He was right. On the Eternal Dominion, Vexthor called a meeting of his senior officers. Commander Riltana was there, watching the High Admiral carefully. Vexthor's voice was cold with anger. Explain to me how we lost 8 ships to primitives. A tactical officer stepped forward nervously. Sir, the humans are using weapons we have not encountered in centuries, solid projectiles. They move too fast for our shields to disperse properly, and their fighters operate in ways our targeting systems cannot predict. Then upgrade the systems. Vexthor slammed his fist on the table. Adapt our shields. Improve our targeting. I want solutions, not excuses. Commander Riltana spoke carefully. Sir, perhaps we should reconsider our approach. The humans clearly know how to fight. They have prepared for this. Maybe we should negotiate. The room fell silent. Every officer stared at Riltana. Vexthor turned slowly to face her. His eyes were full of rage. Negotiate? With primitives? Never. We do not negotiate. We conquer. Is that clear? Riltana bowed her head. Yes, sir. Clear. But inside she felt uneasy. She had studied the battle recordings. The humans fought with precision and creativity. They used their environment as a weapon. They sacrificed small vessels to destroy large ones. They did not fight like any species she had ever seen. That night, Riltana returned to the archives. She read more about human history. One passage caught her attention. It was from an old trader's journal. I met a human once. He told me about their wars. They fight each other constantly. They have refined killing into an art form. They invent new ways to destroy. They never stop learning, never stop adapting. He said something that chilled me. He said that humans do not have a word for unconditional surrender. They only understand victory or death. Riltana closed the book. Her hands were shaking. Vexthor did not understand what they were facing. The Torvin Collective had always won through superior numbers and technology, but humans were different. They won through determination and ruthlessness. 5 days later, Vexthor launched a second attack. This time he was more careful. He sent smaller groups of ships. He kept them spread out so the human fighters could not swarm them. He positioned long-range artillery ships at safe distances, but the humans adapted too. They released clouds of small drones that looked like fighters on Torvin sensors. The aliens wasted ammunition shooting at empty machines. Meanwhile, real human ships attacked from unexpected angles. The second battle lasted 3 days. It was a brutal stalemate. The Torvin could not advance. The humans could not push them back. Ships from both sides were destroyed. Space near Jupiter became a graveyard of twisted metal and frozen bodies. Kim flew mission after mission. She barely slept. Her squadron was down to 400 fighters. Every pilot was exhausted, but they kept fighting. They had no choice. After the 3rd day, both sides pulled back. They needed to resupply, to repair. To Rest Park held another council meeting. We are hurting them, but we are getting hurt too. We cannot keep this up forever. Colonel Lee spoke up. Then we need to change the battlefield. Draw them somewhere they do not want to fight. What do you mean? Park asked. Lee smiled grimly. Let them land on our colonies. Let them think they are winning. Then we show them what real war looks like. Dr. Choi nodded slowly. Urban combat, close quarters. They will have to commit ground troops. And ground troops can be killed. Park considered the idea. It was risky. It meant letting the enemy onto human worlds. But space combat was bleeding them dry. Maybe Lee was right. Maybe they needed to fight where humans had the advantage. Do it, Park decided. Prepare the colonies. Evacuate civilians. Set the traps. Let them come. On the Eternal Dominion, Vexthor received reports that human defensive positions were weakening. His scouts detected fewer ships, fewer active weapons platforms. They are running out of resources, a tactical officer reported. This is our chance. Vexthor felt satisfaction for the first time in weeks. Good. Prepare the ground forces. We will take their colonies. Once we control their bases, they will have nowhere to hide. Commander Riltana wanted to object. Something felt wrong. The humans were too smart to simply give up, but she remained silent. No one would listen to her anyway. The Torvan prepared for invasion. Hundreds of dropships were loaded with soldiers. War leader Kraxel, a brutal commander known for his ruthlessness, would lead the assault. He had conquered 20 worlds. This would be his 21st. The target was New Busan, a human colony on Titan. Scans showed it had a population of 200,000. The colony appeared lightly defended. Kraxel addressed his troops. This will be easy. The humans are weak. They hide behind technology, but we are warriors. We will crush them. The soldiers roared their approval. They had no idea what waited for them below. On Titan, Colonel Do-Yun Lee walked through the empty streets of New Busan. Every civilian had been evacuated. Only soldiers remained, and the city itself had become a weapon. Every building was rigged with explosives. Every street corner had hidden gun positions. The sewers and tunnels were filled with traps. Lee had spent years planning this defense. Now he would see if it worked. The dropships landed in the central plaza of New Busan. Ramps opened and Torvan soldiers poured out, their weapons ready. They spread through the empty streets in perfect formation. War leader Kraxel stepped onto the frozen ground and looked around. The city was silent. No gunfire, no resistance. Just empty buildings and abandoned vehicles. Wind howled through the streets, carrying clouds of frozen methane. "Where are they?" a lieutenant asked. Kraxel scanned the area. They ran like cowards. Search every building. Find their supplies. Find their weapons. This colony is ours. The soldiers moved forward. A squad entered the nearest building. It looked like some kind of residential complex. They climbed the stairs, checking each floor. Nothing, just empty rooms and abandoned belongings. Then one soldier stepped on a pressure plate hidden under a floor mat. The building exploded. The blast was enormous. Fire and debris shot into the street. The entire structure collapsed. 16 Torvan soldiers died instantly. "Ambush," someone screamed. But there was no enemy to shoot at, just the burning wreckage of the building. Then another explosion rocked a different street. And another. And another. The city was rigged. Every building was a trap. Kraxel realized his mistake too late. "Pull back to the plaza, regroup." As the Torvan soldiers retreated, hidden gun turrets emerged from walls and rooftops. They fired automatically, cutting down anyone in the open. Soldiers took cover behind vehicles, but the vehicles exploded too. Everything was a weapon. In a command bunker deep beneath the city, Colonel Do-Yun Lee watched multiple screens showing the chaos above. He sat calmly, his hand resting on a control panel. "Sir, they are retreating to the plaza," an officer reported. Lee nodded. "Good. Let them think they are safe. Then activate Sector 3. In the plaza, Kraxel gathered his remaining forces. He had lost nearly 100 soldiers already. His commanders looked shaken. "We need air support," one commander said. "Blast this entire city from orbit." "No," Kraxel shouted. "The High Admiral wants this colony intact. We need its facilities, its resources. We will clear it building by building if we must." That was when the ground beneath them opened up. The plaza floor was actually a massive trap door. It collapsed, sending hundreds of Torvan soldiers falling into a pit filled with industrial acid. Their screams echoed through the communications channels. Those who did not fall scrambled away from the edge. Then human soldiers appeared. They emerged from hidden tunnels and underground passages. They wore heavy combat armor designed for Titan's harsh environment. They fired short-controlled bursts from their weapons. Every shot found a target. The Torvan tried to return fire, but the humans were already gone, melting back into the shadows. It was not a battle. It was a hunt. And the Torvan were the prey. Colonel Lee led one of the human squads. He moved through the underground tunnels with practiced ease. His team knew every passage, every hidden door, every escape route. They had trained here for years. "Contact ahead," his point man whispered. Lee peeked around a corner. A group of Torvan soldiers was trying to use a tunnel to move safely. They had no idea humans were already in the tunnel with them. Fire. The humans opened up with everything they had. The confined space amplified the noise and chaos. The Torvan could not maneuver, could not escape. In 30 seconds it was over. Lee checked his ammunition. Half gone, they needed to conserve. Move to the next position. Stay quiet. Above ground, Kraxel was furious and frightened in equal measure. He had never experienced combat like this. The enemy was everywhere and nowhere. They struck and vanished. They used the city itself as a weapon. He contacted the Eternal Dominion. We need reinforcements. The humans are dug in. This is not a simple occupation. Vexthor's face appeared on his communicator. You have 50,000 soldiers. Use them, my lord. We are taking heavy casualties. Every street is trapped. Every building could collapse. We need a different approach, then adapt. Vexthor snapped. You are a war leader. Lead. The transmission ended. Kraxel stood in the frozen street feeling more alone than ever. He made a decision. Split the forces. Move in small groups. Use scanners to detect traps. Avoid the tunnels. Stay in open areas where we can see attacks coming. It was a good plan. It might have worked against a normal enemy. But the humans were not normal. When the Torvan split into smaller groups, human sniper teams picked them off one by one. When they stayed in open areas, hidden mortars rained explosives on them. When they tried to scan for traps, the humans jammed their sensors with electronic noise. Days passed. The battle for New Busan turned into a nightmare. The Torvan held the central areas, but they could not expand beyond them. Every attempt to push forward cost lives. Supplies ran low. Medical facilities overflowed with wounded. Captain Mirai Kim flew supply runs to the underground forces. Her fighter dodged Torvan fire as she delivered ammunition and medicine through hidden landing pads. On one run, her wingman was shot down. She watched helplessly as his fighter crashed into a frozen lake. The losses were mounting on both sides, but the humans had the advantage. They were fighting for their home. They knew the terrain, and they absolutely refused to give up. On the Eternal Dominion, Commander Riltana reviewed casualty reports. In 3 weeks, Kraxel had lost nearly 20,000 soldiers. They controlled less than 10% of New Busan. Similar reports came from the other 2 colony invasions. The Torvan were being bled dry. She requested a meeting with Vexthor. The High Admiral looked tired. His scales had dulled. He barely slept. What is it, Commander? Riltana showed him the data. Sir, we are losing this war. The ground campaigns are disasters. We cannot hold these colonies, and we certainly cannot advance to Earth. We have more soldiers, more ships. We will overwhelm them eventually. At what cost? Riltana asked quietly. Sir, I have studied human history. They have been fighting wars for thousands of years. They understand combat in ways we do not. They are willing to sacrifice everything. Can we say the same? Vexthor stared at her for a long moment. Then his expression hardened. We do not retreat. We do not surrender. Send more troops to the colonies. Double the forces, sir. That will leave our other territories vulnerable. I do not care. We will not be defeated by myths. Riltana left the meeting deeply troubled. Vexthor was no longer thinking clearly. His pride had taken control. He would rather lose everything than admit he was wrong about the humans. Back in New Busan, Colonel Lee received word that more Torvan reinforcements were arriving. He gathered his officers in the command bunker. They are sending more troops. Good. That means we are hurting them. Keep up the pressure. Make them pay for every meter. Sir, our own casualties are rising too. We have lost 300 soldiers. Ammunition is running low. Lee nodded grimly. I know, but we do not need to win. We just need to not lose. Every day they stay here, they lose resources. Soldiers, equipment, morale. Time is on our side. One of his officers spoke hesitantly. Colonel, what if they decide to just destroy the city from orbit, blast everything? Then they lose the resources they came for. They lose the strategic position. And they prove to the entire galaxy that they cannot defeat us in a fair fight. Either way, we win. The officers looked at each other. Their colonel was right. The Torvan had made a terrible mistake by landing on the colonies. Now they were stuck in a war they could not win and could not abandon. Lee stood up. Get some rest. Tomorrow we hit their supply depot in Sector 9. We are going to make them very hungry. That night, as a methane storm raged above the city, human and alien soldiers huddled in their positions. Both sides were exhausted. Both sides had lost friends, but only one side was fighting on their home ground. Only one side had nowhere to retreat to. Kraxel sat in his command post staring at a map of the city. Most of it was still marked red for enemy control. He had started this campaign with confidence. Now he wondered if he would survive it. A young officer approached nervously. "Sir, some of the troops are asking when we can withdraw." Kraxel looked at him sharply. "We withdraw when the High Admiral orders it, not before." But the officer's question lingered in his mind. Would Vexthor ever order a retreat, or would they all die here in this frozen hell, trying to conquer people who could not be conquered? Far below in the human tunnels, Colonel Lee checked his weapons one more time. Tomorrow would bring another day of fighting. Another day of casualties. Another day of survival, but that was fine. Humans were good at surviving. They had been doing it for thousands of years, and they would keep doing it for as long as necessary. The Torvin thought humans were myths. Now they were learning the truth. Humans were not myths. They were something far worse. They were real, and they were not going anywhere. The war room was silent. High Admiral Vexthor stood at the center of the massive chamber, his forearms crossed behind his back. Around him floated holographic displays showing star systems, fleet positions, and conquest reports. The Torvin Collective had ruled half the galaxy for 300 years. They had crushed every civilization that dared to resist. They were unstoppable. A young officer spoke nervously. "The next target system has been identified. Sector 779. The locals call it Sol." Vexthor turned. His dark eyes studied the hologram that appeared before him. A yellow star with several planets orbiting it. The third planet glowed blue and green. "What do we know about this system?" "Very little, sir. Our scouts detected minimal energy signatures. Some basic structures on a few planets and moons. The system appears to have primitive technology, maybe abandoned colonies from an ancient race. Resources?" Vexthor asked. "Excellent, my lord. Rich mineral deposits. Water ice on multiple moons. The third planet has a breathable atmosphere. It would make a perfect staging ground for future expansion." Vexthor nodded slowly. "Then we take it." "Prepare the fleet, wait," a voice echoed through the chamber. Everyone turned. An elderly figure shuffled forward, leaning on a walking staff. It was Scholar Mimika, keeper of the ancient records. Her scales had faded with age, but her eyes remained sharp. "What is it, old one?" Vexthor asked with barely hidden irritation. "That system. I have read about it in the old texts." "There are warnings." The war room erupted in laughter. Officers chuckled and whispered to each other. Vexthor raised a hand for silence. "Warnings? What kind of warnings?" "Stories from 1,000 years ago. Before the collective was formed, traders spoke of a species that lived near that yellow star. They called themselves humans. The stories say they were dangerous, unpredictable. They fought wars among themselves for thousands of years. They mastered the art of killing." More laughter filled the room. One commander shouted that humans were just a myth, a story parents tell children to scare them. "If they ever existed, they are long gone," another officer added. "No one has seen or heard from them in centuries." Mimika shook her head. The texts describe their tactics. They did not fight fair. They used tricks and traps. They never surrendered. Even when they were losing, they found ways to hurt their enemies. The old traders said that humans believed in something they called total war. They would sacrifice anything to win. Vexthor walked toward the old scholar. His massive form towered over her. "Scholar, I respect your knowledge. But these are just stories, legends, myths. We have conquered 50 civilizations. We have never lost a single war. If these humans ever existed, they are nothing but dust now. And if by some miracle they still exist, they will fall just like all the others." He turned to face his officers. "Prepare the invasion fleet. We move in 3 days. This will be quick and easy." In the back of the chamber, Commander Riltana watched silently. Something about the old scholar's words bothered her. That night, she went to the archives. She searched through ancient records, reading every mention of humans she could find. The stories were strange. Humans fought with chemicals that burned skin. They created weapons that could destroy entire cities. They sent machines into space before they could travel there themselves. They were curious and creative and terribly violent. But the records ended suddenly about 800 years ago. It was as if humanity had simply vanished. No one knew what happened to them. Riltana closed the old books and left the archives. Perhaps Vexthor was right. Perhaps humans were just myths. Far away in the Sol system, alarms blared on Earth Station Odyssey. Admiral Jihoon Park rushed into the command center. Officers scrambled at their stations. Screens showed dozens of ships appearing at the edge of the solar system. "What am I looking at?" Park demanded. "Unknown fleet, sir. They just jumped in at the Oort cloud." Scans showed Torvin signatures. "Big fleet, maybe 200 capital ships and 500 support vessels." Park's jaw tightened. For 300 years, humanity had watched the Torvin collective conquer the galaxy. They had stayed hidden, pretending to be dead, letting the universe forget they existed. They had built defenses in secret. They had prepared for this day. "Get me the Defense Council, now." Within an hour, the leaders of humanity gathered in a secure conference room. Faces appeared on screens from Mars, the Moon, Titan, and Europa. Everyone looked worried. "They have found us," Park said simply. "We knew this day would come. The question is, what do we do now?" "Can we hide?" someone asked. "Power down our systems? Make them think the system is empty?" Park shook his head. "Too late. They are already scanning. They will detect our colonies. Our ships, everything, then we surrender," another voice suggested. "No." Captain Mireille Kim leaned forward. Her uniform bore the insignia of the Fighter Corps. "We have prepared for centuries. We have weapons they have never seen, technology they do not understand, and we have something they lost a long time ago. What is that?" Park asked. "The will to fight," Kim replied. "The Torvin win through overwhelming force. They have never faced an enemy that refused to give up. We have studied their tactics. They are predictable, rigid, they follow rules. We do not." Dr. Hiran Choi nodded. "My team has been developing weapons specifically designed to counter Torvin technology. Their shields are strong against energy weapons, but weak against kinetic impacts. Their sensors cannot track small, fast-moving objects at close range. We can hurt them." Colonel Do-Hyun Lee spoke next. "Our colonies are fortified. If they try to land troops, we can make them bleed for every meter of ground. Urban warfare, guerrilla tactics, make it so expensive that they will want to leave." Park looked at each face on the screens. Then he made his decision. "We fight. Not because we think we can win a conventional war. We cannot. They have more ships and more soldiers, but we can make them regret coming here. We can show them that humanity is not prey. Lieutenant Song, open a channel to the Torvin fleet." Lieutenant Ji-won Song worked quickly at her console. "Channel open, sir." Vex Thor's face appeared on the main screen. He looked bored. "Inhabitants of this system, you are now under the control of the Torvin collective. Power down your vessels. Prepare for integration. Resistance is futile." Park stared back at the alien admiral. When he spoke, his voice was calm. Cold. "Hi, Admiral Vex Thor. My name is Admiral Ji-hoon Park of the Terran Defense Fleet. You were warned. Old stories told you to stay away from Sol. You should have listened to those warnings. You should have believed the myths." Vex Thor laughed. "Myths? You mean the humans? You claim to be the legendary humans? Impossible. You are extinct. You are stories. We are very real," Park said quietly, "and you are about to learn why they told stories about us." The screen went black. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Vex Thor stared at the blank screen. For just a moment, doubt flickered in his mind. Then he pushed it away. Myths were not real. Legends could not hurt him. All ships advance. Prepare for easy conquest. The Torvin fleet moved forward deep into the solar system. Behind planets and moons hidden in asteroid fields and orbiting stations, thousands of human ships waited in silence. Their weapons were ready. Their pilots were ready. They had been waiting for this moment for 300 years. The invasion had begun. But Vex Thor had made a terrible mistake. He had ignored the warnings. He had dismissed the legends. He had called humans a myth. He would soon learn the truth. Some myths are real, and some myths have teeth. 3 months. The war had dragged on for 3 long months. The Torvin collective controlled nothing beyond their landing zones. They could not advance. They could not retreat without admitting defeat. They were stuck. On the Eternal Dominion, High Admiral Vex Thor looked like a shadow of his former self. His once proud posture had slumped. His eyes were hollow. Reports came in daily of ships destroyed, soldiers killed, supplies exhausted. Worse, news of the Torvin failures had spread across the galaxy. Species the collective had conquered were watching. Some were starting to resist. Small rebellions at first, but they were growing. Commander Riltana entered his command room without knocking. "Sir, we need to talk." Vexthor did not look up. What is it now? Our supply lines are being raided. Human ships appear from nowhere, strike our convoys, and vanish. We have lost 40% of our supply vessels in the past month. Send escorts. More warships, we have, sir. The humans adapt. They use stealth technology we cannot detect. They lay mines in shipping lanes. They sabotage our fuel depots. They are systematically strangling us. Finally, Vexthor looked at her. What do you suggest, Commander? Riltana took a deep breath. Negotiate. End this war. We have proven we cannot conquer them. They have proven they will not surrender. Both sides are bleeding. Stop the bleeding before there is nothing left. Negotiate. The word came out like poison. The collective does not negotiate. Then the collective will die. Riltana said quietly. Sir, I have studied the humans extensively. They will never stop fighting. Even if we kill 90% of them, the remaining 10% will continue. They would rather die than submit. Can you say the same about our soldiers? Vexthor stood up suddenly. Get out. You are relieved of duty. Riltana stood her ground. Sir, I am trying to save lives. Our lives out now. Riltana left, but she had made her decision. She could not watch this disaster continue. That night, she used a secure channel to contact Earth Station Odyssey. She requested a meeting with Admiral Park. Park was surprised when her message arrived. A Torvan commander wanted to talk? It could be a trap, but it could also be an opportunity. The meeting took place on a neutral space station abandoned years ago. Park brought Lieutenant Song and a security team. Riltana came alone. They faced each other across an empty room. Park spoke first. Why did you contact us? Because this war needs to end, Riltana replied. My people are dying. Your people are dying. For what, pride? Conquest? There are better ways. Park studied her carefully. You are speaking for yourself, not your High Admiral. Yes, Vexthor will never surrender. His pride will not allow it. But I can help you. I can give you intelligence. Fleet positions. Supply routes, weaknesses. Why would you betray your own people? Lieutenant Song asked. I am not betraying them. I am trying to save them. If this war continues, the collective will collapse. Other species will rise up. Millions will die. But if I help you win decisively quickly, then maybe we can all survive. Park considered her words. It was a risk. But wars were won by taking risks. What do you want in return? Safe passage for troops who surrender, fair treatment for prisoners, and when this is over, a chance to rebuild, a chance for peace. Park extended his hand. You have a deal. Over the next week, Riltana fed information to the humans. She told them about a massive Torvan supply depot hidden near Saturn. She revealed the patrol schedules, the defense patterns, everything. Captain Mary Kim led the strike force, 200 fighters supported by heavy bombers. They jumped in system and hit the depot before the Torvan could react. In 1 hour, they destroyed supplies meant to sustain the invasion for 6 months. The loss was catastrophic for Vexthor. Without supplies, his forces could not continue fighting. He called an emergency meeting of his commanders. We have one option left, he said. We commit everything to one final attack. We break through to Earth and force them to surrender. The commanders looked at each other nervously. It was madness, but no one dared argue with the High Admiral. Vexthor gathered every ship he could. He pulled forces from the colonies, from the blockade lines, from everywhere. Nearly 500 capital ships and 2,000 support vessels. It was the largest fleet he had ever commanded. We will crush them in one blow, he told his officers. We will show the galaxy that the collective cannot be defeated. But humanity knew the attack was coming. Riltana had warned them. Park assembled his own forces. Every ship, every fighter, every weapon humanity possessed. If they lost this battle, they lost everything. The final battle took place near Saturn's rings. The two fleets faced each other across the void. For a moment there was silence. Then Vexthor gave the order to attack. The space battle was like nothing anyone had ever seen. Thousands of ships firing at once. Explosions lit up the darkness. Fighters weaved between capital ships. Missiles streaked through the void. It was chaos and carnage. Kim flew her fighter through the madness. She had done this 100 times before, but never on this scale. Her squadron targeted the Torvan command ships, trying to disrupt their coordination. Dr. Choi activated her secret weapons. Hidden among the rings of Saturn were massive railgun platforms. They fired simultaneously, launching projectiles at incredible velocities. 3 Torvan supercarriers were destroyed in the first volley, but the Torvan had numbers on their side. They pushed forward, accepting heavy losses. Their strategy was simple: overwhelm the enemy through sheer force. It was working. Human ships began to fall back. Park watched the tactical display with growing concern. "We are losing ground. We need to change the momentum." Lieutenant Song spoke up. "Sir, the Eternal Dominion is moving forward. If we could destroy Vexthor's flagship, their command structure would collapse." Park nodded slowly. It was risky, but they had no choice. "All fighters, new target. The Eternal Dominion. Concentrate everything on that ship." Kim received the order and adjusted course. She rallied what remained of her squadron. "This is it, one last push. For humanity!" Hundreds of human fighters broke away from the main battle and dove toward the massive flagship. The Eternal Dominion's defenses opened fire. Dozens of fighters were destroyed instantly, but the rest kept coming. Kim targeted the ship's main reactor. She fired her last missiles and pulled away hard. Behind her, more fighters followed, each one delivering their payload to the same weak point. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, alarms blared. Vexthor gripped his command chair. "Damage report." "Main reactor is critical. We need to evacuate." "No," Vexthor shouted. "We stay, we fight." The reactor exploded. The blast tore through the ship's core. The Eternal Dominion broke apart, scattering debris across thousands of kilometers. High Admiral Vexthor died, still refusing to believe he could lose. With their flagship destroyed and their commander dead, the Torvan fleet fell into disarray. Some ships tried to continue fighting. Others attempted to flee. Many simply drifted, their crews in shock. Park ordered his forces to stop firing. Broadcast on all channels. "Tell them the war is over. Tell them to surrender and they will be treated fairly." Lieutenant Song sent the message. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then one Torvan ship lowered its shields. Then another. And another. Within an hour, the entire surviving fleet had surrendered. The war was over. Humanity had won. But the victory felt hollow. Park looked at the casualty reports. 40% of the human fleet destroyed. Thousands of soldiers dead. 3 colonies devastated. Kim landed her fighter and climbed out. She was exhausted, shaking, alive. Around her, other pilots were celebrating. But Kim could only think of those who would never land again. On New Busan, Colonel Lee received word of the victory. He gathered his troops and told them the news. "The war is over, we won." His soldiers cheered, but Lee could not. He had lost too many friends in those frozen streets. Commander Riltana was taken into human custody. She had no regrets. She had done what needed to be done. The war was over. That was all that mattered. In the days that followed, the galaxy watched in amazement. The Torvan Collective, the unstoppable conquerors, had been defeated. By humans, the mythical species, the legends. Now everyone knew the truth. Humans were not myths. They were warriors, survivors, and they would never surrender. The question now was, what would happen next? The war was over, but the future was uncertain. Peace would have to be built. Treaties would have to be signed. A new order would have to emerge. But those were problems for tomorrow. Today, humanity could rest. They had earned it.